The Strait of Hormuz. A narrow passage of water just 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, but through this tiny channel flows 20% of the world's oil. Every day, tankers carrying 17 million barrels of crude pass through these waters. It is the most strategically important choke point on Earth, and right now, it's on fire. In 2026, the conflict between Iran, Israel, and the United States has exploded into open warfare. Missiles are flying, oil facilities are burning, global prices are spiking, and the world is holding its breath, waiting to see if this becomes the next major war. As of March 2026, the situation has reached a boiling point. US and Israeli forces have struck deep inside Iran, targeting military factories in Isfahan. Iran has retaliated with missile barrages hitting Holon and Jerusalem, injuring civilians, including children. The US has destroyed Iran's Karg Island oil facilities, paralyzing their oil exports. President Trump has demanded Gulf allies deploy warships to keep the strait open. But Iran has ordered the evacuation of UAE ports. Hezbollah has vowed an existential fight, and there's no end in sight. U.S. bases in Iraq and Kuwait remain high-alert targets. Iran's Navy and Air Force have been decimated, but they continue missile attacks on Israel and U.S. bases. The economic fallout is immediate. With the strait threatened, global oil markets have entered a state of pure panic. In London, Tokyo, and New York, gas prices have doubled overnight. Supply chains are snapping under the pressure. Global shipping insurance has skyrocketed, leaving hundreds of tankers anchored, unable to move through the contested water. European capitals are preparing for energy rationing. This isn't just a Middle Eastern war, it's a global survival crisis. From Paris to Seoul, public anger is boiling over as the cost of living becomes unbearable. Governments are on the edge. The question is no longer when the war will end, but how much of the global economy will be left standing. In this documentary, we'll take you inside the escalating crisis. We'll explain why the Strait of Hormuz matters to every country on Earth. We'll analyze the military situation. Who has what? Who's winning? Who's losing? We'll examine the recent strikes and retaliation. We'll look at the global impact, soaring oil prices, economic disruption, and the threat of a wider war. And we'll ask the question everyone is asking. Where does this end? The next 90 minutes will reveal the truth.
Let's start with geography. The Strait of Hormuz connects the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. It's bordered by Iran to the north and the UAE and Oman to the south. At its narrowest point, it's just 21 miles wide, but within that narrow channel, ships must pass through 2-mile-wide lanes in each direction. It's a bottleneck. And through this bottleneck flows 17 million barrels of oil every day, 20% of the world's total consumption. About 1/5 of the world's oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz daily. No other waterway is as strategically important. So who depends on this waterway? Almost everyone. China imports 60% of its oil through the strait. Japan imports 80%, India 70%, South Korea 75%. Even European countries rely on it indirectly. If the strait closes, the global economy grinds to a halt. Prices spike, industries shut down, recessions begin. The Strait of Hormuz is the world's most important oil choke point. If it closes, we're looking at $200 oil within weeks. Iran controls the entire northern shore of the strait. They have anti-ship missiles, fast attack boats, naval mines, and submarines. In theory, they could shut down the strait whenever they want, by mining the channel, attacking tankers, or threatening shipping. They've done it before, during the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s. They can do it again. Iran doesn't need a navy to close the strait. They just need a few mines and some missiles. It's asymmetric warfare.
President Trump has made his position clear. He's demanding that Gulf allies, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, step up and deploy their own warships to keep the strait open. His reasoning is simple. These countries depend on the strait for their own oil exports. They benefit more from its security than the United States does. Why should American sailors risk their lives while Gulf nations watch from the sidelines? President Trump stated, "Our Gulf allies have massive navies. They have modern warships. They need to put them in the water and protect their own interests." The message is a direct challenge to the long-standing security arrangements in the region. The response from Gulf allies has been muted. Saudi Arabia says it's considering the request. The UAE is assessing the threat level. Kuwait is pushing for diplomatic solutions first. Privately, these nations are terrified. If they deploy warships, they become direct targets for Iranian retaliation. Their ports are vulnerable. Their oil facilities are vulnerable. They don't want to be dragged into a war. As one analyst put it, the Gulf states are walking a tightrope. They need U.S. protection, but they don't want to provoke Iran. It's a nightmare scenario. Adding to the pressure, Iran has ordered the evacuation of UAE ports. According to intelligence reports, Iran has warned that any port hosting U.S. or allied warships will be considered a legitimate military target. Shipping companies are scrambling to move vessels out of harm's way. Trade is already being disrupted. Shipping executive reports state, "We're rerouting vessels away from UAE ports. It's chaos." The entire shipping schedule is in disarray. The economic impact of this standoff is being felt globally. As the world watches the Strait, the question remains, who will blink first in this high-stakes game of naval chicken?
Iran's warning was explicit and public. In a televised address, a senior Iranian commander declared that any port in the UAE that allows allied warships to operate will be considered a legitimate target. This is not just rhetoric. Iran has the missiles to hit these ports and they are willing to use them. The commander stated, "The UAE ports are within range of our missiles. If used for attacks, they will be destroyed." The response was immediate. Shipping companies began evacuating vessels from UAE ports. Jebel Ali, one of the busiest ports, saw a mass exodus of container ships and tankers. Satellite imagery shows the port emptying. Global shipping is being disrupted. As one expert noted, "We haven't seen anything like this since the Iran-Iraq War. Shipping is fleeing the Gulf."
Let's be clear about the military situation. Iran's conventional forces have taken significant damage. U.S. and Israeli strikes have destroyed much of its navy, warships, submarines, and fast attack boats. Its air force has lost dozens of aircraft and multiple bases. By traditional metrics, Iran's military has been decimated. If this were a conventional war, Iran would have lost already. But it's not a conventional war. But Iran's strength has never been its navy or air force. It's their missiles. Iran has one of the largest ballistic missile arsenals in the Middle East. Thousands of missiles, with ranges up to 2,000 kilometers. They can reach Israel, U.S. bases in Iraq and Kuwait, and Gulf cities, and they're still firing them. Iran's missile force is largely intact. They've lost some production facilities, but they still have plenty to fire. Iran knows it can't win a conventional war, so they fight asymmetrically. They use proxy forces like Hezbollah and Iraqi militias. They fire missiles from hidden mobile launchers. They deploy drones. They mine shipping lanes. They attack where they're not expected. This makes them incredibly difficult to defeat. Decimating Iran's conventional forces doesn't end the war. It just makes them fight differently. The war continues, evolved and unpredictable. The Middle East stands at a critical juncture as the missile war between Iran, Israel, and the United States enters a devastating new phase. Since the escalation began, missile attacks have become almost daily occurrences. Iran fires barrages at Israel, targeting cities like Holon and Jerusalem. They fire at U.S. bases in Iraq and Kuwait. Some are intercepted. Some get through. Civilians are being killed and injured. An IDF spokesperson stated, "We are intercepting the majority of incoming missiles, but not all. The threat is constant." Israel's Iron Dome system has been working overtime. With a claimed 90% interception rate, it's saved countless lives. But 90% isn't 100%. When Iran fires dozens of missiles at once, some get through. In recent attacks, missiles have hit residential areas, injuring civilians, including children. An Israeli official warned, "Every missile that gets through is a tragedy. We're doing everything we can, but we can't stop them all." On Sunday morning, March 2026, U.S. and Israeli forces launched a coordinated strike on military factories in Isfahan, deep inside Iran. These factories were producing components for Iran's missile program. The strikes were precise, targeted, and devastating. According to an intelligence source, the Isfahan facilities were critical to Iran's missile production. This strike sets their program back years. The strikes killed at least 15 Iranian military personnel and technicians. The factories were leveled. Iran's state media initially tried to downplay the damage, but satellite images told a different story. The heart of Iran's missile program had been hit. Iranian state TV eventually admitted, "Enemy strikes have caused damage to facilities in Isfahan. Several martyrs have been reported." Strategically, the Isfahan strikes were significant.
Iran's missile production capacity has been crippled. They can still fire what they have in inventory, but replacing those missiles will be difficult. Over time, their rate of fire will decrease. A military analyst noted, Iran's missile arsenal is now finite. They can't produce new ones quickly. Every missile they fire is one they can't replace. The disruption of Iran's production lines marks a turning point in the regional power struggle. It's a long-term win for the coalition. Coalition forces remain on high alert, monitoring the response as the geopolitical landscape shifts under the weight of these strikes. As production slows, the focus shifts to whether this will force a diplomatic opening or trigger a more desperate retaliatory cycle. For those on the front lines, the threat remains constant. Every launch is a reminder of the fragility of the current peace. The Isfahan strikes have effectively reset the clock, buying the coalition time and significantly weakening Iran's offensive capabilities. As the world watches, the missile war continues to reshape the future of the Middle East. Stay tuned for further updates.
Hours after the Isfahan strikes, Iran responded. Waves of missiles were launched from western Iran, targeting Israeli cities. This wasn't a symbolic attack. It was a massive barrage designed to overwhelm Israel's defenses. Multiple waves of missiles have been launched from Iranian territory toward Israel. Israeli air defenses are fully engaged, intercepting the incoming threats across the country. One missile got through. It struck a residential neighborhood in Holon, just south of Tel Aviv. Buildings collapsed. Fires broke out. Ambulances rushed to the scene. Among the injured, a child. The image of that child being pulled from the rubble became a rallying cry for Israel. We pulled a child from the rubble. She was alive, but injured. This is what war looks like. Another missile struck near Jerusalem, in an area close to holy sites. Several people were injured. The symbolism was not lost on anyone. Jerusalem, the heart of three religions, was now in the crosshairs. Iran is targeting our cities, our civilians, our children. This will not go unanswered. Karg Island is Iran's most important oil export terminal. Over 90% of Iran's oil exports pass through this tiny island. It is, quite literally, Iran's economic lifeline. In recent strikes, U.S. forces destroyed the terminal's loading facilities, storage tanks, and pipelines. The destruction is total. Loading operations have ceased entirely. As one energy analyst put it, Karg Island is gone. Iran cannot export oil anymore. Their economy is effectively paralyzed. The destruction of Karg Island has crippled Iran's economy. Oil exports have dropped to near zero. The Iranian rial has lost half its value in days. Food prices are soaring. Protests are erupting in cities across the country. The regime is under immense pressure. Economists warn this could be the final blow. The regime is facing its biggest crisis in decades. The global impact has been immediate and severe. Oil prices have soared past $200 per barrel. Gas prices are skyrocketing. Truckers are protesting. Airlines are canceling flights. Industries are shutting down. The world is facing an energy crisis. Experts are drawing comparisons to the 1973 crisis, warning that the global economy is heading for a deep recession. The countries most dependent on Gulf oil are suffering the most. China, Japan, India, South Korea. All are scrambling to find alternative supplies. Europe, already dealing with high energy prices, is facing a new crisis. The global economy is teetering. We're looking at a global recession. This is the biggest energy shock in 50 years. And then there's Hezbollah. The Iranian-backed group in Lebanon has vowed to enter the fight. Their leader has declared this an existential battle. Hezbollah has an estimated 150,000 rockets and missiles, many capable of reaching deep into Israel. If they join the war, it will open a second front. Israel would be fighting a two-front war. Nasrallah has stated, "This is not just another battle. This is a fight for our existence. We will not stand by."
Despite the escalating crisis, President Trump has ruled out a negotiated settlement. He stated publicly that the terms being offered by Iran are not good enough. His position is clear. Iran must capitulate, or the military pressure will continue. Iran wants a deal, but their terms aren't good enough. We're not going to reward bad behavior. With both sides dug in, there's no end in sight. Iran refuses to surrender its missile program. The U.S. refuses to accept anything less than total capitulation. Diplomacy has failed. The war continues. We're in a stalemate. Neither side can win decisively, but neither side will back down. This could go on for years. So where does this end? Analysts have outlined 5 possible scenarios. 1. Full-scale U.S. invasion. 2. Internal collapse as Iran's economy implodes. 3. Regional war, with Hezbollah and other proxies joining. 4. Prolonged stalemate. 5. A last-minute diplomatic breakthrough. Right now, stalemate looks most likely. Neither side can win, but neither side will quit. But while strategists debate scenarios, the human cost rises. Civilians on both sides are dying. Children are being injured. Homes are being destroyed. Families are being torn apart. War is always, ultimately, a human tragedy. The numbers are just numbers until you see the faces. And the faces are heartbreaking. 21 miles of water, that's all it is. But that narrow channel has become the flashpoint for the most dangerous crisis in a generation. The world watches, waits, and hopes. Hopes that cooler heads prevail. Hopes that war can be avoided. Hopes that the children of tomorrow will not inherit a world on fire. But hope is not a strategy, and in the Strait of Hormuz, the future hangs in the balance. Thank you for watching this in-depth analysis of the Strait of Hormuz.